Welcome, everyone. I am excited to have you all here in the room. For those catching the replay, I'm excited you are carving out time from your day to join us. I am Kristina Butler. Welcome to the Unscripted Pivot Brunch series. And I said colon, and I know Jasmine is like, there's a story there. Stuff I'm working through in my head, but it's the brunch series. I will give you a little bit of backstory. I'll tell you a little bit about me, and I'll turn it over to our guest for today. Backstory: 10 years ago, I hosted a brunch for working moms, and it was phenomenal. Like the feedback, women were like, yes, we needed this moment, set aside this time for ourselves to learn about our finances, about fashion, about entrepreneurship. It was a little bit of everything. And over the years, right, I knew I wanted to do something similar to it, right? Some individuals had asked about it. And I was like, like one day, like now it's not on the list right now. One day. Um, and I guess late last year, very beginning of this year, I started thinking about it again, and I was maybe, the seed, I could tell the seed was there, and I just wasn't sure of how I wanted to grow it. Um, Rainah and I jumped on a call when we reconnected at the beginning of this year, and she's like, yes, now. So here we are now, May. So it took a few months for me to truly conceptualize it and make sure it aligned with kind of what made sense for this season, not just of my life, but also the lives of those that all of us here serve, right? We're all connected to. As you all know, so much has been happening um, here in this country over the past year and some change, even more than that, where so many women, my clients, right, my coaching clients as well, are sort of in this season where they've got one foot planted in one space and they're kind of like, I need to pivot. I need to do something, either forced or voluntary. I need to do something. I'm just not sure of what that is. And so that's the idea of the unscripted pivot. Kind of, I know I need to do something. What I'm doing now no longer serves me. It no longer aligns. I'm not sure of what I'm supposed to do next. I'm not even sure of what my options are. I'm not even sure if it's realistic. But I'm here today to tell you that it is. And so I gathered this amazing group of women together over the course of 4 Saturdays. You will hear from each of them about their stories, their pivots, how they coach their own clients, just all that they've done in life, right? Their experience, I think, here's what I'll say to you. Over the years, I used to think about how other people were doing things I wanted to do. And I'm like, if they can do it, right? Like if it's possible for them, then why not me? And so I think we'll get into a lot of that today where we'll have those moments and you're like, gosh, like she did that with 4 kids. She did that, right? She did that, right? Like we will get into a lot of that today. But that's the backstory, right? That's how we got here to the unscripted pivot brunch series. I like to eat. I love food. It's my thing. It's what it is. So I mentioned before we started recording, I've got some sourdough bread, some tea here that I picked up in my travels because I love to travel too. Shout out to Om Noir in their group. I've got some mozzarella and I have some grapes and a little croissant. So I mentioned liking to travel. Let me say this as well. Quick intro of myself. Single mother of 2 amazing girls. They're now technically adults, even though they don't quite own that label. I love them anyway, and I know they're going to watch this. So I, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. I will say that. 2 beautiful girls. And I love to travel. I'm a dual certified HR professional, spent 15 years in HR and talent acquisition, recruiting for some pretty large organizations over that course of time. And I bring all of that experience to coaching my clients, working with small organizations on their talent strategy, things like that. So that's my backstory. I'm located here in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I'm from Queens, New York. So sometimes, as we're talking today, you'll hear an accent here or there. It comes and it goes. I don't force it. I'm also an Army veteran, so there's this level of structure that I like. And so when Jasmine and I talked about the colon, and I'm like, no, it has to be this way, like, or else it's not right. Um, Anyway, the colon in the title, the unscripted pivot brunch series. Let us kick it off. I am excited. Again, thank you all for joining today, setting aside time from your Saturday. Beautiful weather. We'll get you out of here in time to enjoy it. But we've got Rainah Davis. Um, Rainah Davis is in the house. 10 years ago, she was in the house. And I am excited to have her in the house again today. We were just talking about this 12 years ago
Hmm.
um, at an event in DC. Yep. With a business coach and all these years, like it's crazy how life is, right? But she stuck beside me. We stayed in touch. And she's here today. So Rainah, you can introduce yourself. You'll do a much better job of it than I will. The floor is yours.
Okay, awesome. I am so super excited to be with you guys today. And like Christina touched on a little bit, previously I was a single mom of four girls. And of course, that I was divorced and I went through kind of a crazy divorce. And I actually, Christina, when I was on the first brunch series, I did a talk called Winning the Wardrobe War. And it was all about kind of, looking good on a budget. We kind of go back and forth between people who were remote, and now there's so many more people than ever going back into the office.
Mm.
And so I kind of, dug into that and kind of tying the story together. It was really crucial for me because at the time, you may say, okay, well, what was the kind of the big deal around it? Well, for me, it was during my divorce. I lost so much weight. I dropped down to like a double zero. Fast forward this time when Christina and I were talking, we were laughing because I had just finished a wellness journey where I was losing 30 pounds because, menopause hit, it's a whole nother life. And so when we talk about pivots, I have that full perspective from, being in a tough place and coming out on the other side. And during that time, I was working, when we met, I was working as an executive administrator at a church because it was a job that really allowed for me to take care of my kids. But what has happened to me, which will happen to a lot of other people, is you kind of pay this mom tax where there was other jobs I probably could have and definitely could have been doing at that time, but that would not have helped me serve my children, to that capacity. And so right now in real life, I am one of the 600,000 women that, minority women who is, out of work. However, all is not lost because I have this side business, that I have been doing, really kind of on and off for 20 years. I kind of joke about it like it's like a really faithful side chick, she's there when you need her, but, it's really great because without that, there has been a lot of times where I would not have been able to do things that I needed to do for my kids or my family. And so the first thing that I tell women, because I serve as a coach, I serve as a consultant, I consult with a lot of churches, on marketing, on branding, which is, my background. I, went back to school, I got a degree in comms. I am in school now because as a part of the most educated demographic in the US, we need more in school, right?
Yes.
So I am currently a DBA candidate, a Doctor of Business Administration candidate at South College. I'm very excited to have started that journey. And I tell us all the time, you don't necessarily need the degrees to validate you. You need degrees typically for others to feel validate that you are, validated in the work that you already do. And doing your certifications and all of those things works because you learn there's so many things that we figure out on our own. You just don't have a name for it, or you just don't have you may not know the framework or any of that, but you learn it when you do those things. So I do all of those things. If you look at, if you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see I've done the school, I'm doing certs. I'm cert stacking now. I'm doing school and, offline. If you guys want to know why I specifically chose that program and that degree, I would love to tell you more about it. It was very strategic. And what I will say, if there's anybody is doing anything that is school related, in the age where information is everywhere and there's a lot of free information, you need to really be doing it with a strategy. But we will dig into that. But I'm very excited to be here now, you know, remarried, biological kids, fourths, like Christine said, technically they're all grown, two bonus kids also technically grown. And I have seven grandkids and counting. So it's busy over here, okay? It's just
Busy, busy. Eh, Seven.
yes. So I said all that to say that, we're all getting hit with these pivots left and right. And there is a way for us to ground ourselves and come out on the other side and still have our sanity and still not look like what we've been through with our black not cracking and, all of the things. It is 100% possible. I'm a woman of faith. And so all of the principles that I teach are through that filter. However, I just, really want to encourage today as we start this conversation. But that is a little all over around the world, a yeah story about me in the shortest possible time so we can get into our conversation.
Yes, yes, yes. Welcome. Thank you for saying yes. I appreciate you. Always have. Always have. And I know we're going to get into some good stuff today. I think the first question I'll ask, life with seven grandkids, my goodness. But the first question, like I don't have any, and sometimes I think I want them, and then I have people like, no, girl, just enjoy your time now. Like, but I hear they're a blessing. My grandkids bless my parents all the time. I love it. So let's talk. Let's
Okay.
talk, right? I've got my snack in front of me. I'm gonna snack, you're gonna snack, got my tea. When I put this together, and I know we even tossed some names around, the unscripted pivot just kept coming back to me. Because for many, it's not something they planned, right? You start in these careers, you start down these paths, and you think it's going to look one way, right? You have this idea in your head. So when I say the unscripted pivot, what comes to mind for you, Rainah?
For me, it's like it's something that is unplanned. It is unscheduled. However, there is a necessity for you, the pivot piece is there's a necessity for you to still get from an A to a B.
Mm.
So if I think of it, I think
Mhm.
about the word, if you my bachelor's is in English, so y'all forgive me. I'm a little bit of a word nerd, but if you think about the word transition, it has a lot of meanings in today's society. However, if we just take it for a second and think about transit, is that this would be a pivot that can still get us as like a transit system to our next place.
Mm.
So it's unscheduled. It might not have been the train or the plane or whatever that you thought you were getting on. However, this is now the transit system for you to get from A to B and the plan and the ability to maximize the season that we're in.
That's good. Transition, transit from A to B. We're getting on this train. Train rides are sometimes scary. I'm gonna say they are sometimes scary. Um, because that train is going however fast, let's say 150 miles an hour, and you got to get on it as it's moving, right? The world doesn't stop because you are in the process of a pivot or rethinking something.
Mhm.
What's the first thing? What do we, where do we start? Right? But as we get on this train, or as we even looking at the train, as we're
Mhm.
looking at the train, we know it's coming, or we
Mhm.
know it's in front of us. It's entering the station. Where do we start with that? Because many are afraid to even jump on.
Well, I think that if you continue in the transportation realm, you think
Hmm.
about, if we go from a train and shift a little bit to like think about the airplanes, and you think about when, very commonly metaphor used where, they're saying, if the pressure drops and a mask comes down, put the mask on yourself before you
Hmm.
attempt to administer care to others.
Hmm.
That is like really cute unless you're ever on an airplane and you actually are experiencing turbulence, and then you think about that because it's real cute thinking about it right here with us together. We're safe, we're sound. I'm in North Carolina today as well. It's beautiful here. You're not really thinking
Yep.
about it, but it's a whole nother thing being 30,000 miles in the air, and that plane is ricking and rocking and ricking and rocking, and it's like you're feeling the bolts and you're feeling the jolts. That is a whole different situation. And so in those moments when you are going through those turbulent things, you think about all the things you do. First, it's like you hold on. Then you think about what they're saying to you, like, well, if something does happen, don't try to get all your stuff. You're
Right.
just trying to save yourself. And so the first thing that I think about when you're trying to jump on that train or you're trying to be calm in that turbulence with your mask on is the first thing you have to do is choose yourself
Mm.
because it is so difficult for us. We serve everybody. I told y'all, I gave y'all that whole list of people that are in my life because I want you to know that I'm actively practicing what I preach and choosing myself because there are a whole lot of people in my inner circle, people that I love, not my outer circle, a whole lot of people in my inner circle that are always trying to dictate what they think I should be doing, how I should be doing it, and how I should be meeting their needs. However, the challenge with that is while I'm looking for jobs and making it to round three or round sometimes feel like 37 just to kind of go back to the drawing board. I'm still caregiving. I'm a part of the sandwich generation where I have an elderly parent, where we kind of are taking care of together. And so it is nothing for one person to try to say, "Oh, this is what we should do," but they're not the one doing it. So the first thing when you get ready to, make that pivot or make that jump or make sure that you're safe in that scenario is you have to choose yourself, especially in a season where other people may not be choosing you when we talk about career pivots and when we talk about even consultations or things you pitch. Sometimes you choosing yourself looks like me refocusing on my gifts, my skills, my abilities, and even my capacity and making a plan and putting one step in front of the other to start that process.
Mm. The struggle for many of us. Um, I don't think, and I'm going to talk about mothers for like 30 seconds, but I don't think we have given ourselves, and I know Jasmine, who's here today, and she's our guest for the next episode. We talk about it often. We haven't given ourselves permission to put ourselves first, right? Um, she talks about prioritizing pouring it into yourself. We haven't given ourselves permission for that. So choosing yourself is huge, and it sounds great. And you also touched on kind of people tugging you in different directions and wanting your time. So what I'm also hearing, boundaries.
Mhm.
Whew, that word. And I don't know if it sparks something for anybody else, but that word for me until I was near death didn't exist. Literally dying. And it wasn't until I was not even just in the hospital, but like my last day in the hospital. I spent a week. My last day in the hospital, and I said, okay, this is like seriously, no is no. It is it, and there's no explanation needed. No, it is me, and that completely shifted my perspective. So it sounds like when we're talking about choosing yourself, getting comfortable with not just setting boundaries, because that just sounds good if you're not enforcing those boundaries, right? If you yourself haven't fully bought into the importance of setting those boundaries. Is that along the lines of what you were thinking when you talk about choosing yourself? Like, goodness, the word no.
Yeah, I think, so I think that what happens is that I think boundaries get a bad rap. I think that a lot of times, you know, because if there's any elder daughters on the call, so, if you're a mom and you're an elder daughter, like you really get it. Or if you are the child in the family that is the responsible child, because sometimes it's not the eldest child. Sometimes, it's the middle child or it's the baby. It doesn't matter kind of where you fall. If you're the person that, picks up the cross, of the family, then yes, we are 100% talking to you because boundaries is tough, which is the reason why I would love it if everybody would adopt the word capacity because because here's the thing, givers need language for this.
Mm,
Takers don't need language for this. They just say
mm.
so this is a giver's conversation. So givers, kind of stay, come to the front. It's like the boundaries or the capacity is really like a summary of kind of your yeses and your nos. So, you will look back over your life and you'll see, okay, these decisions got me closer to these goals and these decisions got me further away. And all of the decisions aren't always, should I move here? Should I take this job? Sometimes it's just, should I actually um you know, do I need to go to this concert with for this kid today, or do I need to go to this basketball game, or how do I rearrange it? Like I had to tell my kids because I had multiple athletes, I was like, I'm coming to all home games.
Okay.
So they weren't looking for me at away games because I was like, that's beyond my capacity. I will be cheering you on. Y'all need help with the graphics. I will help the team on with the graphics. I can do that
Mm-hmm.
for all the games, but in my physical presence, I'm gonna come to all home games. And if you only have one kid, that might not ever be your scenario. But for me, having multiple kids in multiple states, that was a decision. So I definitely think that boundaries is a piece of that. And I think adopting the word capacity and being able to communicate, having new language, to say, hey, it is my desire to help you. However, based on my capacity at this moment, or my capacity in this season, or my capacity today, I can help you, but I would need to do it in this way. If that's cool with you, then that works. If I understand if you need to get someone else to help you with this, because the way that I would help you is doesn't kind of meet your needs. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is language
I
that
like
you have
that.
to learn when you are in a pivot season and people are used to you doing everything and making it look easy.
Yeah, I'm not able to help you in the way that meets your needs right now. I like that a lot. Girl, I needed that language. I needed that. And capacity. Capacity. So it goes beyond boundaries. It does. Okay.
Because often you think about capacity in a work context.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, one of the challenges that I feel like, burnt out when, because you hear in there's like rest conversations,
Mm-hmm.
how we met, Amanda Littlejohn did a great book, Rest Revolution. It's like when
She
you
sure
think
did.
about burnout and you think about all of these things, a lot of it just starts with our ability. We feel so bad. Some of us have mom guilt. Some of us have daughter guilt. Some of us have auntie guilt. Whatever it is that's driving you, you have to give yourself permission to say, okay, I am doing the best I can with what I have in the season I'm in. If you are a mom, like I was a young mom,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my oldest, kind of frowning up at me for the tax bracket and the life that my youngest is living. I just have to say, baby, I did the best I could with what
Yes.
I had in the season that we're in. And I tell people all the time, if you live well, you should get better at it the longer you do it. You should get better at life. You should get better at mothering. You should become a better, whatever the thing that you do, you should get better at it the longer
Yeah.
you do it.
Goodness. Okay. So much there. And I want to touch on something because I know you are in school now, pursuing your doctorate.
Hmm.
And so, as you said that, I thought about how I worked a full-time job, took care of the two kids, homeowner, and pursued my master's, right?
Hmm.
Single mom, and still trying to be the good daughter, taking care of my aging parents, even until, at the end of my dad's life, just being there for all the things, and the now ex being there for all his things and his like stretched thin. And I didn't really have the capacity, but for whatever reason, I prioritize school. I prioritize my education. I'm a forever learner.
Hmm.
And I think about how hard that is, how hard that was, as someone who wants to go back to school. So when we start talking about these pivots and what that could look like, especially in the space of careers, um, additional education, I think, and I could be partial, but furthering our education is huge. Talk to us a little bit about what led to that decision for you to decide to like, yeah, I'm going back to school. Because
Okay.
that when we talk about capacity and all the children and the
Yeah.
grandchildren and the
Hmm.
sports and the business and the
Hmm.
employment and the spouse,
Hmm.
where did it come from? Right.
Okay. So we are going to, we may not get to all of it. So
Yeah.
I will send you a link, but I created, I took pivot and I was like, well, if we were going to talk about it, because I knew that there were some points that I wanted to share and that they would be intertwined within this. As I'm going to answer your question about school and things and where did that come
For
from.
sure.
And so when I think about pivot, and for those of you who, are educators, you're consultants, you think in frameworks, you think in systems, you think in those things. I took pivot, I made it in an acronym over the week, and the first P was I was like, that I said that it should be productive pain. So we all are experiencing pain and we need to find a way to make that pain produce something. So for me, the decision of going back to school was I was up for a promotion at my job. And by the way, on January 15th, I found out our whole organization was shutting down and our last day was January 30th. Prior to that, 3 months prior to that, or 2 months prior to that, there was a position that came open in our company. It was like a VP of maybe strategic comms or something like that. I was 100% qualified for this role and I didn't get it. And at the time, they hired a consultant. And when I looked at what the consultant had, the only thing that she had that I didn't have was she had like this deep, she had a DBA and organizational leadership, because they did not want only someone that had a comms background, which I did. I have a master's in comms,
Hmm.
and but they were looking for this side of it. And so I started investigating it. And I like South College because South College has what you call a CBE program. A CBE program is competency-based education. So what it
Mm.
is that they let you purchase 6 months of classes, 6 months of education. So as many classes as you can take in those 6 months, you can take. And that program is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's around $7,000, for those 6 months. But
Okay.
the program is a shorter program than like a traditional PhD or ED program. You have the option of doing a dissertation or capstone. And so when I dug into it and I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really amazing. The classes that they were offering in the program, I was like, okay, these are things that I would like, more of. These are the things I think can help me, and the difference in the DBA degree than an ED or a PhD, which is much longer,
Hmm.
is that I wanted to be a practitioner. If I end up teaching at a college, that's fine, but I'm not necessarily trying to go the research route because I'm a practitioner. I'm a consultant. I am very interested in making people's lives better and making businesses better, making churches better. And that is a practitioner kind of perspective. That's not necessarily a solely educator's perspective.
Hmm.
So that was one of the things that got me. That was one thing. And then I wanted to redirect kind of the pain that I felt kind of from that, into purpose. I was like, I want to go deeper into this. I knew that we were shifting. I know I was one of the only people, at my company that was really actively learning AI, which we'll talk about, in another, section. But when I think about combining the skills I already had, um, I actually had a recruiter, an older white gentleman I'll never forget, who, when he interviewed me for a job, and this was years ago, this wasn't this layoff, it was a previous layoff. He was just like, I would have never gotten you from your resume. I would have never gotten the brilliance of you, and he was like, there are some things that you're going to need to do to close the gap between who you are and the benefit that you could add to an organization versus the body of work that you've done up until this point in service to your family.
Mm,
And it
mm.
blew my mind. No one had ever talked to me or said anything like that. It was almost like kind of like an older, if you could imagine like a girl that was just like,
Yeah.
took me into that for a moment. And so that conversation prompted when I went back to school for my master's. I can kind of agree with you on that. I had three kids in three different schools at that time, middle school, high school, and they all were like 30 minutes in different directions.
Oof.
Um, when I did my master's degree. So, and all of that started because one of my kids, I had to bring back home because of like what I call co-parenting crazy, which that's like a different show for a different day.
Honey.
But if anybody knows about that, that's a whole different.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, but it led me in that scenario. And I just happened to this time, I've been very blessed. I have an incredible spouse now. We just celebrated being married 11 years. And he's super supportive. We're supportive of each other's goals, but he's super supportive. And, which is another kind of testament to just because you go down a road or you make a bad choice or you make a bad relationship decision or you make a series of bad relationship decisions, as I did in my youth,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that you can't, heal, learn yourself, get better, make better choice and have a better partner, moving forward. But at the end of the day, I made that decision because I was trying to look out for my future self and make sure that if there's tables in the future that I want to be able to go to, that opens doors for me before people see me or my color or anything like that. They understand, okay, this is someone that's serious about, changing organizations and has, this communication and, is serious about AI integration and all of those things. So it was me when I was 45 making a decision, which I hope many of you look at your lives and decide what do I want to be doing in 5 years? And then when I was 45, I'm 49 now. I decided when I'm 50, I would love to get to the point where I'm paid more for thinking than doing. And
Mm.
I have made choices and set goals in alignment with that ever since.
Paid more for thinking than doing.
We have incredible minds as, Black women.
Yeah.
I saw somebody post if they gave all moms, the country, we'd have it fixed before lunch. Like, we are
Got
incredible
things
at
to do.
we're incredible at problem solving. We're
Yeah.
incredible at budgeting. And so, we just have to put ourselves in position to do that.
Yeah. Goodness, I love that. Okay, so P, productive pain. Wow. Okay. I like it. It's still scary to me. It's still when we think about pain, it's still scary. But yes, I chose productive pain when I pursued my master's, right? Like and like you, um, I wanted people to see my commitment to my education, my commitment to that particular field.
Mhm.
Hence the master's in HR, hence the
Mhm.
two HR certifications.
Mhm.
Um, what happens? I want to say what happens when that no longer aligns, right?
Mhm.
What happens? Because this is not this is not your first career. This is not your first
Hmm.
business,
Hmm.
right? So prior business, prior career,
Hmm.
at that point when you realized it no longer aligned, first thing you fixed, first thing you addressed, right? Like again, I'm still on this train. For whatever reason, I'm still on the train and
Hmm.
it's coming into the station hot. And I'm like, this is the moment where I decide. So I guess it's more of a mindset shift that has to happen. This is the moment where I have to decide to choose me. I have to decide what I want to do in 5 years, right? I have to decide so many things. But I guess coming to peace, coming to grips with the shift in here is
Hmm.
what makes all the other stuff possible, is what makes the jump onto the train a little less frightening. I'm stuck on the train. I'm stuck on it, right?
Yes. Well, I think when you think about when you have a career that
Hmm.
no longer fits or your life no longer is you feel like is serving you.
Yeah.
I think, there's a couple of different things that you do. So I'm reading a book right now by one of my favorite authors, John Acuff, and it's called Procrastination Proof. So maybe you guys don't have any issues with procrastination ever. So
What?
I will come to the front of the class, I will raise my hand. I will say, in all of the things that I do superbly well, there are things that, that is like, that's kind of one of my boogeymen. Okay. So I've been reading this book. It's incredible. It's attaching it. And he is changing how I think about goals. The very first time that somebody taught me like a shift in how I thought about goals and productivity actually was when we were at Amanda's event. And she was the first person I ever heard say that you should batch and plan your days.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a life that
I
no
remember.
longer fits, if you're going to add stuff, because one of the things that I tell my oldest daughter was, I said, see, your problem is you keep adding things to a plate that's already full without taking anything off. And so the very first thing you have to do is you have to look at this thing and you got to say, well, what can I take off this plate? Like, what am I not going to eat? What do I not eat anymore? Because as you get older, there's certain foods that you used to could eat when you were, as my dad would say, well, I like this food, but it doesn't like me. Like, what is on your plate that needs to come off your plate? And so I think that, one of the things that we talked about in the title of today's, we talked about identity. And I think
Mhm.
it's very critical that we understand that we are living in a time where we are viewed a certain way, but the viewpoint of us has nothing to do with who we really are. So the first thing that I say is conversations like this, having sisterhoods, whether they are, micro, where it's you and one other person in a group chat, like whatever it is, that community is very important because what happens is you have somebody that can say, girl, you're great at this, Rainah, and it happens to me all the time. I could have somebody that's calling me this morning or tomorrow morning asking me to help them write a book. By afternoon, somebody's like, can you help me set up my LLC? And it's not because, you're trying to necessarily be all over the place. It's because, like Christine said, you live all these lives, you've done all these things. And so people know that you can do all of these things. So when you get to that point where you're like, okay, I am ready to, like we said, get paid for thinking, not necessarily doing, when I am ready to have one thing. And again, I'm not necessarily a niche, like a 100% niche down person. I think multi-gifted people have unique challenges in the world and we should be loved gingerly. Okay.
Mhm.
I believe that. But what I do know it is very hard to focus on multiple things at a time. So the first thing you have to do is you got to pick one thing that you're going to do, and then you prioritize the next thing, and then you prioritize the next thing. So for me, I decided that I want to be an after five, CEO. I don't want to be a full-time CEO all the time because the
Mm.
people be people-y and the funds be funding with the people, okay? Because the funds be
Okay.
funding. All right.
Uh-huh.
So, but what I decided is that my steps are I want a 9 to 5 job. So what I can build is I can build a consultant practice where we begin to take corporate clients. if you take corporate clients and you take, or for me, whether it's church clients or corporate clients or organizational clients who have budget line items, it is the difference between you offering a service for $80, $800, or $8,000. You literally are using this, you're doing the same skill, but it's all about how much somebody can pay you to do that skill for the problem that you're solving because you're solving that problem at scale.
Mm,
So for me, I am in a strategy rebuild and a strategy pivot. The train that I'm getting on now is, I am shifting to a thought leadership perspective and a consultant perspective over a doer perspective. That is hard for us. We are
yes,
hardwired to do
yes.
from slavery on. We've been hardwired to do, but
Mm-hmm.
we are rewiring that instinct.
Okay. Um, Rewiring,
Hmm.
pivoting,
Hmm.
capacity, school education, all of this paid
Hmm.
more for thinking than doing. And
Hmm.
when you said that, I thought of something, and I know you mentioned it earlier. Um, Something I talk about often is this architect versus operator, right? Especially in the career space, right?
Hmm.
So the operators, they're the ones executing. They've got the playbook, they're operating within the box, sometimes thinking outside of it,
Hmm.
um, but they know the box. Then we have the architects, the builders, right?
Hmm.
The people paid for their brilliance to design and craft strategies for organizations, future thinking strategies, because you're not just building for the now. That's not an option.
Hmm.
And you touched on AI a second ago. You mentioned it briefly. And
Hmm.
so when we think about capacity, right, and
Hmm.
our pivots, how has AI helped you in this regard lean more into um, positioning yourself as the thinker, the strategic thinker, the thought leader? Um, and time, I go back to this capacity thing because AI is one of those tools we use now to create, right, more a faster way of doing things, a faster way of executing on tasks, not to replace the thinker or the
Right.
thought leadership, right? Because it can't do that, but to execute on the task. So, talk to me about how AI has played a role in this pivot for you.
Okay. So if we go back to, our acronym we're doing in our pivot, right, the I for me was innovative impact. So we are living in a tech revolution, whether we like it or not, like
Hmm.
it, love it, hate it, whatever, we are living in a technical revolution.
Yeah.
The thing that you're saying, though, the thing that we need to be mindful of is the output is only as good as the input. So part of the reason why I'm still reading books, I'm still cert stacking, I'm in school, is because you want to keep your brain has to stay sharp as you're learning the tools because
Yeah.
what is easy to do is to try the temptation is to get the technology to do your thinking. And
Hmm.
that is what the technology should not be doing. It should not be doing your thinking. It should be a thought partner. It should be, right now I'm in the process of learning automations and I'm learning agents and but at the same time I'm learning that part cautiously because at Social Media Marketing World last week I met a lady, first name is Noelle. I can't remember her last name right now. She actually was on the team that built Alexa at Amazon.
Wow.
Um, she's a biracial Latino woman, incredible one woman, incredible story. She has a family, so I'm always listen even harder, leaning harder with the women who do things that take our breath and have families because
Mm.
that's because most people are navigating that reality. And so the thing that she was saying to us is we should learn the tools, we should use the tools, but we have to understand there is a safety, there is some risk that goes with the tools. So what I'm telling everyone to do is learn the tools and instead of jumping on the bandwagon of the culture's AI people, Just start with the free courses that whatever your program, like my program right now is my favorite program is Claude. I still use chat. You know, I
Hmm.
think she's a great thought partner. I love talking to her. But the Claude is really good because it's first of all, like it's just they just keep coming up with it. So it's like now you got Claude design. So now everybody's stuff doesn't look exactly the same. It still looks similar, but not the same. You know, but you can put it in like, for example, I have a worksheet for you guys and I have my pivot points. And I asked Claude, I said, I want to take these pivot points and I want to put them, my talking points, I want to put them, in a worksheet for, the attendees because so I'm thinking somebody might be driving, somebody may be listening to this cooking. And so I want them to be able to go back and look at the notes. So it did that. It created the notes for me and it created a worksheet, for me. So then I asked it some questions that you guys would have to answer in order to make these pivots. And so then it created that worksheet for me, but it used my ideas. I didn't ask it what did Claude, what do you think about pivot? Claude don't have to pivot. We have to pivot. So I said, so I fed it the information, but really technology for me is all about innovative impact. I got asked to do an AI talk for the Black North Carolina Funeral Home Association. And they asked me to come talk to them about AI. Now, y'all are probably wondering what I'm going to talk about. If I'm honest with you, so am I. But the answer, the answer, as I am striving to be an AI consultant, is yes. So I'm continuing to learn. So then I start asking, I'm talking to chat. I'm like, so how can they use it? Because they have a lot of sensitive information. So
Hmm.
how can we use this? How can they do? What are the things that we can take off their list through automations that would make this run smoother? And it gave me some things. And so now I'm helping and I'm building some tools, some GPTs and some things that they could use. And so that is important. I think the biggest thing that I want all of us to know is that we cannot afford to be left behind this. We need to learn this. And in addition to learning it, we have to use it so that it knows about us. Because we
Yeah,
can't assume that the people that are programming it know about us. And if they do know about us, they don't know the right stuff. So if you're using your things, you definitely want to go into your security and you want to turn off, learn, about, use my chats to you want because when we're dealing with client data, sensitive data, different things like that, you don't want it to have access to that information to your personal stuff. So you do want to turn that, you want to go in your security setting and you want to turn that off. You don't want it sharing, your stuff and using your stuff for training. You don't want that. So just make sure that you do that. But it is critically important that we are early adopters to the technology.
critical. Um, Jasmine, I know I've had conversations about Claude a number of times because it's so useful and we're kind of like tiptoeing into it. Um, there's so many mixed thoughts about it. I've talked to so many people about their thoughts around AI and taking jobs and this and that. We see the headlines where major organizations are, cutting tens of thousands of people from their workforce and attributing that to artificial intelligence. Um, and so being an early adopter,
Mhm.
right, is not optional, right? Understand. I've talked to clients about this too. Kind of when you think about your specific industry and artificial intelligence, where's the intersection?
Yes, that's
Um,
good.
yeah, where's the intersection? I talked to my daughter about it. I'm like, when you think about being a therapist, when you think about being, so I've got one who's the therapist, neuroscientist, right? That's her career, her desired career path, and the other who's the stylist, right? Very different. Um, but for both of them, it's sort of like talk to me about the intersection of fashion and artificial intelligence, right? Like,
Mhm.
will stylists exist 10 years from now, or is everyone going to leverage AI for that? And you're in the fashion space too, Rainah. So, like, there's so many thoughts around AI, and what you're saying is important. Adopt now because it is here, it is not going anywhere. back to the train. It is the train. And you have to get on this one,
Yeah.
right? It's not optional. Standing there looking at the train. Yes, it's coming in hot. It's scary, but you have to get on it, right?
Yeah, well, I think you made a great point. Is that architect versus operator point. I think that architects of the future, your leaders, your thinkers, your movers, those people are going to know about the technology and know how to use it to get through their work faster. And so if you are somebody who you're trying to be an architect, you're trying to be a thought leader, you're trying to kind of lead in impact, you're serving, you're not necessarily selling, but you're trying to, serve people and serve organizations, then the architect in you will need to make sure that this is a tool that you have in your tool bag.
Hmm. What's the V? I know we won't have time to get through all the letters today. Tell me the V.
So when we talk about it, switching our lines, we just said visionaries plot and plan victories. You have to be the visionary of your own life.
Wow.
You 100%. Like, I think about all of the times that people they do go to work, they do a calendar plan, they do annual year planning, they do this, they do that, but we don't think about our lives in that way. I just told one of my daughters in school that's in grad school right now, it would behoove you to take out your calendar and think about and plan in quarters. Because for you, 3 to 4 years, 3 to 5 years is too far away because that's just going to scare you. It's just going to slow you down. You don't need to think that far out. We don't know all of the things that are going to happen. So that's too far out for you. You need to think in quarters. What does my next 90 days look like? Okay.
Hmm.
Then I'm going to go back to school. I have this thing planned. I'm starting a new job. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
the visionary, you have to have a vision for your own life. Your vision must be matched with strategy, and that's why, again, the AI tools are good. Like if you're thinking through it, you can spit something out in there. If you're like, hey, Chatter, hey, Claude, I want to make $10,000 in the next, not in this quarter. These are the skills I can leverage. Help me come up with some packages and then tweak them around who you're really serving. Like that is a way. Um, you plot the path, you plan the steps, and you expect to hear no and a lot of times when you're doing things, but
Hmm.
plan for yes, because it only takes one yes to make a really huge difference in your life. You only need one.
Plan for yes. As a planner girl, and I subscribe to the 12-week year philosophy, right? So as a planner girl, planning for yes
Mhm.
feels right. That's a train I can get on.
Well, that's what all of these things are. That's what all of these things are
Yeah.
doing. That's what your setting your capacity does for you. That's what, choosing if you're going back to school or you're doing certifications or you're doing things, anything, especially that you're spending money on, that you are
Yeah.
super strategic about it because you're planning for, yes, I'm planning that someone's going to see me, they're going to want to hire me as this consultant, and all of the, my experience, my education, and my things are going to all align.
I love it. I love it. Okay. How do we get the other two letters? How do we?
So we can do it one or two ways. I
Yeah.
created I have a little sign up thing where they could get it from me, or I can send them to you either way. This is the sign up, the link. I'll send it to you guys. I'll put it in
Okay.
the chat.
I'll make sure it's in the follow-up email that I send to everyone.
Okay. And
And
it's
I
like
know
I said, it's
you.
a little worksheet. It's a little
Okay.
worksheet as well. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Perfect, perfect. I know you mentioned coaching as well. If someone has a desire to dive deeper,
Mm-hmm.
um, we're not talking pick your brain, right? We're talking leverage your expertise to move us
Sure.
forward in our own pivot. How do we do that?
So that same link that I just dropped in the chat,
Hmm.
if that gives me their email. When I get the email, I'll send out like a coaching kind of like what I'm calling like a pivot, pivot planning or pivot plotting, kind of carrying it on. And,
Yep.
and then the worksheets, they'll have access to choosing, downloading those and getting sessions if they would like. So I'm ready. I want to help. I'm
Yeah.
excited. We've covered a lot of life. So like I tell my kids, make new mistakes. You don't have to make the mistakes that we've already made. Okay.
Yeah. Make new ones. We have done our fair share of making mistakes, opportunities for improvement. We've done it. So this has been awesome. Awesome. My last question to you.
Okay.
Um, when we're thinking about the women in the room now, the women at the brunch table now, when we're thinking about the woman who is watching the replay
Mhm.
and she's thinking about her own pivot. I know you've shared a lot, and I've taken quite a few notes.
Mhm.
Um, we're taking it bite size. I
Yep.
know it's a train coming,
Mhm.
but we're not gonna we're just gonna tiptoe a little bit. What's the first thing? What's the next 7 days look like? What's the next step as she goes from her unscripted pivot to actually planning her pivot?
I will say the first number one first step is identify your confidence killers and start attacking them because your plan doesn't work if you have things. It's like having weeds in your garden. So the first thing I say is like, let's pluck up all the weeds. So for me, like I said, menopause found me and jumped me and
Whew,
put 20 pounds on me, around my 48th
not
birthday.
up to you.
It did. It jumped me. It was real disrespectful and rude. And then it drove a guy in a car and drove away. It didn't even stick around, like to make sure I was okay. And so my point is that I went on this wellness journey and I lost 30 pounds in 1 year and I have kept it off. Well, like maybe in 10 months, and I've kept it off. And I really have gotten down to losing as low as 34 pounds, but like that 4 pounds, like that's kind of those are my play pounds. Like
Hey, fam.
you're not gonna always be, some days I'm gonna have some rice, okay? Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna strong arm me and I'm not gonna ever not have French toast again, okay?
Okay.
Menopause is not gonna win.
At
So,
all.
but your confidence killer. So real quick, I'll tell y'all mine, I'll be
Yeah.
transparent. So the extra weight, was a thing. I had gaps in the side of my teeth. And so when I had my last job, I had FSA for the first time. And so I used it to get my little adult braces, to
Okay.
my Invisaligns, they're almost done.
Yes. Yes.
So as the kids will say, my teeth are T and they're almost T rather. And so and so then, like we talked about in the book, got rid of all the clothes that don't fit, got all that stuff out of there. So when I walk in my closet, I know, okay, these are the things, this is what I can wear, and it doesn't like drain my energy. And
Yes.
then I just say you can't have knowledge without containers. So as you are gaining new knowledge, figure out like your buckets. Like AI is a bucket for me. My DBA stuff is a bucket for me. It's like I'm learning new things,
Mm-hmm.
like this new life of caregiving and adult kids and being an empty nester. It's real semi because I feel like I see these kids all the time.
So semi.
But
Jesus.
but it's life. It's that batching and planning. And so figure out who you want to be, like
Yeah.
if you had to kind of avatar yourself, who do you want to be? And then get rid of all the confidence killers and then start with kind of some of those other things that we talked about. And again, like Christina said, you don't have to do it by yourself. If you are trying to figure out career stuff, talk to her. I took some of her advice when I started tweaking my resume. So it's like, if it's career stuff, if it's life and, pivot, transition, transit stuff, I'm happy to help.
Yay. You mentioned the book. Make sure I have the link to the book. I actually have it. Never mind.
Okay, you have the book. Okay, so this was the book that we did together. The Winning the Wardrobe War book was the book that we did together. Or that we did based on the series that we did together. And then the only other thing I'll say is that and I'll send this link to you to put in the recap video, is
Okay.
the last time that I did a training, I referenced that book and a devotional that I had just done called Future Forward Faith. And when I did it, I didn't know that by the time we released it, and, I would lose my job. So we are all having Future Forward Faith together. Okay. So
Yes.
Just if whether it's that or whatever, it's like make sure you have an anchor to your faith. We definitely will need it as we go through this pivot.
This has been awesome. Not enough time. Not enough time, but awesome. I appreciate you. Uh, always have. Um,
It's great to be here. Thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you. It will not be another 10 years. This is the thing. We are meeting in person in Charlotte for this.
Okay, I
Um,
can't wait. So I
yes,
can't wait to meet you guys in person. It's awesome.
yes, yes, yes. Well, you and I have already met, but we will
Yes,
gather
we
for
will
for
gather.
the
But
yes,
we'll
for the
meet
unscripted
everyone.
pivot.
Yes,
Yes, in
yes.
person.
That's awesome.
Okay. Thank you for saying yes, everyone. Thank you for saying yes and joining us today live. Everyone catching the replay, thank you for saying yes and carving out time. Our next episode is in 2 weeks on the 30th. Jasmine, who's here now. Hey, she will join us. Man, that is going to be a good one. As a matter of fact, just for like a taste test, she has her prioritize poor, because I know that ran together. Coming up in a couple of hours here. Jasmine, you have the link handy to drop that in the chat or no?
I can drop it in the chat for sure.
On the
Yes.
spot,
Thanks for
on the
putting me on the
spot,
spot.
on the spot,
Right.
girl.
Yes. Love you, girl. Love you.
Love you back. All right, ladies. Jasmine's gonna drop that in the chat. Thank you so much. This brunch is near and dear to me. It doesn't stop here. We're having the conversations that need to take place. Um, it's time. It's important. It's non-negotiable. We have so many takeaways. I will send an email along with the link to the replay to everyone, and I will catch you all in 2 weeks, May 30th, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, for the next episode. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
Okay.